I think it's important to know your objectives before you go ahead and tackle any kind of goal or what you have for the day. So today, my objectives, the first thing is, what's your philosophy? I'm going to talk a little bit about my philosophy, about the principles that created my philosophy. I'm also going to tell you a story, and the story is going to be a basis of how I came up with my 9 pillars of influence. So my coaching philosophy is based on one very important concept, and that's creating professional friendships. Think about the most valued friendships that you have in your life right now. It could be your best friend, it could be a sibling, it could be your spouse, someone that you work with, a significant other. There are 2 things that every friendship is based on, and that's trust and honesty. You cannot have one without the other. Think about that. Trust and honesty builds every perfect friendship. So, professional friendships, what are they? How do you do it? How do you make them? Well, the reason to create professional friendships in the work environment is to better serve your athlete, to better understand who they are as people, not only in the weight room, but outside the weight room. So some of your support staff, who are your support staff? I listed a few up here. They're your athletic trainers, your academic advisors, your head coaches and your coaching staff, if you have nutritionists on staff, if you have sports psychologists, your administration, more specifically your compliance representatives, leadership career academies, or AIA. Now I'm going to give you an example about how 2 of these particular support staff can help you better serve your athletes. So the first example I'm going to give you is athletic trainers. Athletic trainers. I would hope everyone in this room knows who their athletic trainers are for their teams. Okay, creating a professional friendship with your athletic trainers. It's going to help you better serve your athlete inside of the weight room. A couple years ago, I started sending my program to my athletic trainers. You ask why? So that they can better understand what I'm doing inside the weight room. Can I get a show of hands of how many people, when they started out, they got injury reports with acronyms on it that they didn't even know what they were? Come on, let's be honest. Right, exactly. Now you get this injury report and you don't even know what it means. I'm the type of person where I'm going to go down the hallway and I'm going to have a conversation about this injury report. I'm going to go across campus and I'm going to see what these acronyms actually mean. Well, if I send them my program and they know what I'm doing on day 1, on day 2, on day 3, out on the field, they can better specify their injury report to what I'm doing in the weight room that day. So now on day 1, the injury report the night before is going to be specific to a power clean or a squat or an overhead press. And now I'm not guessing. Now I'm better serving my athletes because I can give them specific modifications based on what is on the injury report. Your academic advisors. How many people meet with their academic advisors at the beginning of the year of their sports? Not many, if any. I hope next year when you guys come back to this conference, there's more of you that raise your hand to that question. Because our academic advisors know our athletes as students. Our academic advisors know our athletes as students. They know how they tick outside of the weight room. Why do we need to know them? Well, first of all, we could have that one athlete all the way on this side of the spectrum, and there are engineers. There are bright minds. Their brains are wired probably better than some of us in this room. They can intrinsically understand what their bodies are going through when they're in the weight room. Now, on this end of the spectrum, you have an athlete with a learning disability. How do you know that? How do you know that unless you have that conversation or create that professional friendship with your academic advisor? In turn, you can better serve your athlete by creating these professional friendships. The other side of my philosophy is creating professional friendships with your athletes. Again, trust and honesty. Do they trust you? Are they honest with you? And in turn, do you trust them? And are you honest with them? I'm going to tell you about a story. The story is about an athlete's experience and their 4 years of experience during their undergraduate careers. This athlete was recruited out of high school. They had an opportunity to go to their school and participate in a camp prior to their first preseason. Now, this athlete was a fall sport athlete. While at this camp, their head coach brought them to be introduced to their strength coach. And during this time, this athlete approached their strength coach, and they were nervous, walking across the football field and getting introduced to the football strength coach that also was coaching their team. And their shadow cast and got bigger and bigger. Well, that athlete knew that they had to make a good first impression. So that athlete stood tall, looked their strength coach in the eye, and gave him a firm handshake. Throughout the summer, this strength coach gave this athlete time to get into the weight room and get a head start on training before their first preseason. They were able to train with an upperclassman. The upperclassman taught this athlete the ropes, taught this athlete the principles, the standards, and expectations. As they proceeded into their freshman year, this athlete endured injuries. We've all been there. We've all had our injuries, and this athlete had injuries, and this strength coach and this strength test was very attentive to this athlete. They made modifications. They paid attention to what they were doing inside the weight room. They kept them involved. By this athlete's sophomore year, they had been a part of the program for a year and a half. So the strength coach and the strength staff started to trust this athlete. And instead of pairing this now sophomore with an upperclassman, they paired this sophomore with a freshman. So now this strength coach not only trusted this athlete, but this athlete started to trust their strength coach more. As the years went on, this athlete had questions about nutrition. They didn't have a nutrition staff at their university, so they confided in their strength coach. And their strength coach was honest, asked them questions. Are you sleeping? What are you eating? What are you doing to better your body outside of the weight room? And the strength coach was able to be honest with this athlete. And because the strength coach was honest with this athlete, they wanted to be honest with their strength coach. Now, after 4 years, this athlete did not have a championship ring. They were lost. They were depressed. They had a great experience, but they still wanted to be a part of something. So they went back to their strength coach and their strength staff, and they had a little bit of a life talk with them. Well, the strength coach gave them a chance to be a student intern in the weight room. And this athlete now had this accountability, not only to hold themselves accountable to the standard and expectations of the strength staff and of the program, but now they were accountable. They were accountable to hold other athletes and other teams to the standard and expectation of the strength staff and of the program. They were accountable to make sure that that weight room was nice and clean day in and day out, and things were put away correctly. This athlete then graduated. They got a job out of college, had a great experience, but didn't know that strength and conditioning might have been in their future. They realized how much they missed it. They realized how much they missed impacting the lives of other athletes. And they got on the phone with their strength coach, and the strength coach gave them an opportunity to be a graduate assistant at their alma mater. This athlete took that opportunity. This strength coach and this strength staff made an impact in this athlete's life to give back, to come back to their alma mater, and to be a strength coach. Now, this athlete was the legacy of this strength staff. This athlete was the legacy of this strength coach. And never did this athlete know that one day they would be the assistant director of strength and conditioning at Rutgers University and be standing on the stage in front of you today. For those of you that know me, you kind of knew where that was going. For those of you that don't know me, that athlete was me, and that was my story. So with that story, I came up with my 9 pillars of influence based on my experience that I had as an athlete. So I'm going to go through them with you. First impression, The Rock. I can't do the eyebrow thing, so I mean, if you can do it, go ahead. All right. First impression. You only get one first impression. Make it count. You get one first impression. Make it count. I talk about in my story how I walked across the football field. My strength coach was had previously been an offensive lineman. I'm a goalkeeper. I was a goalkeeper. I stand 5'5.5". and I weigh less than I do right now. First impression, I think it's only natural for me to say now that we're down in Nashville, I was shaking in my boots. I was scared. I didn't know what to expect. But I knew that my first impression was important. What's your first impression going to be like? How do you want your athletes to see you? What kind of light do you want them to see you in when you first introduce yourself? I don't know about y'all, but I love to scare the crap out of my athletes when I first meet them. It's fun. It's actually fun. But at the same time, be stern, be short, be concise with your standard and expectation and how you want them to perform in your weight room. But at the same time, be approachable. Make sure that you're that type of coach that are very stern in your ways, but you are approachable. Again, first impression, you only get one. Making time. If you don't have time to do it right, when will you have time to do it over? I talk about in my story how my strength coach gave me time. He offered me time. I got to train with an upperclassman prior to my first preseason. He made time for me. We have this excellent program at Rutgers University, and it's called the Bridge Program. We are able to have a chance for our athletes to come in and take classes and use our facilities. Now, if you made that professional friendship with your compliance representative, you'll know how hands-on you can be with these athletes. There's a trend. Again, making these professional friendships is going to better help you serve your athletes. Make time for them. See what you can do for them. I'll give you a second to read this quote. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Again, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Every single conference that I have been to, the last 7 conferences that I've been to, I have heard this quote. Live by this quote. I'm here to offer this quote to you. Attentiveness. I talk about, in my story, my strength coach, Coach Van Dyke, and his strength staff. They were attentive to every single injury that I endured. They didn't ostracize me. They didn't push me off to the side and say, oh, go do the injured workout. This is what you're doing, go ahead, and then go coach the team. They kept me involved. I was still at that rack with that same partner. I just might have been doing dumbbells instead of barbell. They kept me involved. Do your athletes a favor. If they're injured, keep them involved as much as you can. If they have one limb, come up with a workout for that one limb. Now, I understand that athletes endure more catastrophic injuries like our ACLs or labrum tears. Maybe they're on crutches. Maybe they only can make it to half of the workout. Give them something to do. Give them a responsibility. Say, hey, I need you to make sure that all those red bands wind up on the rack at the end of the lift. Give them a station. Here's my stopwatch. Time the planks. Time the core. Give them responsibility. They will now know, in the long run, on their road to recovery, that you not only care about them physically, but you care about them mentally. And when they get back on the playing surface and they get back into the weight room and they're full go, they are going to work even harder from you from the get-go, because they know that you had their back from day one of their injury. Trust. We talk about trust, fall in love with the process. I talked about it in my coaching philosophy. Now, we're not going to trust a freshman as soon as they walk in the door. We would like to. That would be ideal. But do they trust you? Are you compelling as a coach? Are you convincing? It goes back to that first impression. What impression do you make on these athletes the first day that you meet them? Do they trust you right out of the gate? I talk about how my strength coach and my strength staff trusted me by my sophomore year to pair me with a freshman. I had gotten a head start. I had been a part of their program for a year and a half. They trusted in me. They trusted in me that I would then show other athletes on my team the ropes. Hold them to the same standards and expectation. You ask, if that's not possible, how can I trust my athlete? How can I get my athletes to trust me? How can I get my athletes to buy into my program? How many of us get to go out to practice every single day with our teams? How many of us get to go out at least 3 times a week? How many of us get to go to practice once with our teams? Who never gets to go out to practice? And for those of you that are sitting up front, there's a handful of people that raise their hand for every single one of those questions. Get out to practice. If you want your athletes to trust you, make it a priority. Make it a priority, even if it's 15 minutes, to get out to that field and see those athletes practice. And if it's not practice, get out to the competition. Why? The verbiage of the sport. Learn the head coach's verbiage. How do they coach? What's their coaching style? What words do they use? What kind of motivational techniques do they use? Research the sport. I showed up at Rutgers University. I had 6 teams. I had previously worked with 2 of them. We've all been there. We've all gotten new teams. We've all gotten new sports. You don't know anything about that sport? Do your research. Understand the verbiage of that sport. And then take that verbiage, pull it into the weight room. Who knows what an aha moment is? We got heads shaking. Aha moments. I live for those aha moments. Aha moments is the reason why I'm up on this stage right now. Those aha moments is what gets me to go to work every day. Those aha moments could be that junior hitting that big PR on squat. Or it could be that freshman finally making the connection of being out on the field and how the weight room is going to better their performance. Get out to practice, get out to competition, learn the verbiage of the sport, and tie it into the weight room. You'd be surprised how many aha moments you truly have in a week, in a day, and the impact that you have on these kids. Honesty. It is so important to be honest and upfront with one another and with your athletes. Be straight up with them. I think it's a little bit of an issue these days where people are too afraid to hurt one another's feelings because they're honest, because they're truthful. Now, I'm not saying be insensitive. Know your audience. But I guarantee you being honest in the long run will make a bigger impact down the road. Be honest. Be honest with your athletes. Ask them questions. Ask them questions. Force them to be honest. I talk about in my story how I approached my strength coach. I approached my strength coach because I was that 5'5.5" goalkeeper that had to go up against athletes that were 6 inches or bigger than me, and I couldn't keep weight on. Well, guess what my strength coach asked me? What'd you have for lunch? Well, coach, I had a slice of pizza today and a big cookie. I had to be honest with him. I went to him for help. He was honest with me. He asked me compelling questions of honesty, and I would have done a disservice to him if I wasn't honest with him. He was able to help guide me because I was willing to be honest and tell him the truth about what I was going through, what my body was going through. So ask your athletes some questions. Was that squat really 90 degrees? Was that squat really to our standard? If they really don't know the answer, take a video. We all have phones in our pockets 24/7. Take a video. Show them a video. Make them understand so that next time you ask that question or you ask the spotter that question, they can tell you the truth and they can be honest with you. Are you coachable? Or are you that athlete that always makes excuses? Are you coachable? Or are you that athlete that always makes these excuses? Now, you probably already know the answer to that question, which is fine. But the point is that you're trying to instill these good habits. You're trying to instill honesty in this athlete so that later down the road, honesty is just natural. And my favorite My favorite question that I ask, did your teammate really perform that exercise to our standard for her or him to deserve your compliment? Oh my gosh, is it a pet peeve of mine? When my athletes motivate and cheer each other on and talk about how great their dynamic warm-up is. Like, what did I do wrong? Yeah, Abby, your high knees, they're great. Yeah, get that hamstring stretch. You go, girl. What? What? Do they really deserve that motivational cue? Do they really deserve that compliment? I don't think so. So ask them these questions. Ask them compelling questions. Teach them how to be honest in the right way. Accountability. I talk about how, in my story, I was a student intern at Stony Brook University. I all of a sudden became accountable not only for myself and my teammates as an undergrad, but now that I was a student intern, I had to hold others accountable to the standards and expectations, not only of the strength staff, but our weight room. Now I was responsible for other athletes. I was responsible for other teams. I was responsible to make sure that the weight room was nice and clean. How many of us have been there where we are cleaning and we are down in our hands or knees and we have one spray bottle and 3 towels and we are just cleaning every crevice of every rack, and you are thinking, this isn't in it. Why am I doing this? This is not why I want to be a strength coach. I don't want to clean a room. We've all been there. We're all sitting in these chairs because we've all been there. We understood in accountability. We understood that there was something bigger than ourselves. We took pride, not only in helping others, but taking care of a facility. How many of us have facility manager on our resume starting off? Facility maintenance manager. That's huge. That proves to other coaches that you were accountable, not only for other lives, but for the equipment that you were using. As an intern, as a volunteer, as a graduate assistant, your first impression starts right now. We all have our favorites. We all have our favorites. We all have those athletes that they're the diehard athletes. They get in the weight room day in, day out. They get after it. They're our favorites. Don't make an exception. Don't make an exception for those athletes. Hold them accountable as much as you hold accountable, as much as you hold the other athlete that you really don't like, that you really wish you never saw every single day. Hold them same accountability. Because in turn, it will help you keep your job, and it'll make your job more enjoyable. You will have to do less work in the long run as long as you hold every single athlete to the same standard and expectation. Opportunity. I talk about opportunity and how my strength staff from Stony Brook gave me the opportunity to become the first graduate assistant back at my alma mater. I have a question for you all. What kind of opportunity are you creating for your athletes every single day? What kind of opportunity are you creating? Are you instilling great habits? Are you instilling bad habits? Are you giving them the right tools to be successful? Again, we were all sitting in these chairs today because someone, one of our mentors, one of our colleagues, gave us the right tool. They gave us the right tool to make us successful. It could have been 1, it could have been 100. But someone gave you an opportunity to beef up that toolbox that you could walk in to your first interview with your chest out high with confidence. The second part of that, opportunity. What kind of relationships? What kind of professional friendships are you creating outside of the weight room? Did you know that your athlete was into media and marketing? Did you make a professional friendship with your video crew? Could you say, hey, Mark, go ahead. Introduce yourself. Introduce yourself. This is so-and-so. This is the video crew. This is the video manager of the athletic department. Are you making these connections for them? Again, creating professional relationships and professional friendships outside of the weight room is to better serve your athletes in the long run. Opportunity. What are you doing on a day-to-day basis to create opportunity for your athletes? Impact. Having an impact. This first picture right here, all the way to your left, it's a transfer lacrosse athlete. Now, I worked with lacrosse this past fall. I think I worked with them 6 times in 4 days, but one of those times, I worked with speed development. I was with them at 7 a.m. in the morning, and it was the early session. So I had to be witty. I had to make it fun. I had to make it educational. But I didn't realize that I had an impact that I did on this athlete until she came in for a video session with her coaches, and she took a screenshot. She took a screenshot of her running form. And then she texted it to me a couple days later and said, "Hey, coach, look, I'm working on my running form in the scrimmage." Wow. I didn't know that you were even paying attention. And if you don't notice in this picture, working, in this picture, this is one of 2 defenders that are trailing her. Now you can use this as an educational tool. She comes and brings this picture to you and say, "Hey, your upper body mechanics are excellent. You're cradling the ball, excellent." Verbiage. "Look at your triple extension. Do you know how we get triple extension?" "No, coach, how?" "Power clean." Aha moment. Think about it. This athlete in the middle, I was able to coach her for 2 years. She was a rower. I was able to coach her for 2 years. She always had a back injury. She came in as an undergrad, from high school with a back injury. Never did I know how important strength and conditioning was to her until she asked me to meet with her at the end of her junior year. She asked me to meet with her. She came into my office and she talked about what an impact strength and conditioning had on her life, not only as an athlete, but the confidence that she had as a person. I never knew that. I was approachable enough for her to come in and see me. She just finished her first internship with our strength staff this past semester. For the first time in her life, she squatted with a bar on her back and tested over 200 pounds. But at the end of the day, I just did my job and I was able to impact her in a way that I never knew until she came and approached me about it. This third athlete over here, now this athlete, I actually got a video text from a field hockey athlete. And she sent me this video, and I was like, oh gosh. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes when you get like videos and pictures from your athletes, you're like, oh my gosh, should I open it? I'm afraid. Like, I don't know. I mean, hopefully, you get what I mean. So I opened up this video, and oh my gosh, did it make me laugh. It made me laugh. I had this impact on this athlete that, firstly, she was strong enough to change her own tire. She had a flat. She was in the middle of a Walmart parking lot. She had the strength to undo those nuts and bolts. She's 19 or 20 years old, and she had the confidence to change her own tire. Sorry, Dad, I know you're out there, but at 19 or 20 years old, I had no idea how to change a tire. This girl did. She had the confidence. She had the strength. Impact. If your presence doesn't make an impact, your absence won't make a difference. Again, if your presence doesn't make an impact, your absence will not make a difference. Why do I coach? Why do you coach? I have this quote sitting up right behind my laptop. I read it every single day. It reminds me why I love to show up to work day in and day out. I coach because of the kids and the passion I have for the game and sport itself. There's no better feeling than teaching a child the importance of discipline, hard work, team effort, dedication, determination, and the heart it takes to win not only in sports, but in life. I have a couple pictures up here. These are currently the 4 teams that I work with at Rutgers University. These are 2 of my soccer seniors, great girls. This is my golf team, dabbing at the end of a conditioning session. They wanted to do this picture. They were doing conditioning in the tunnel of a football stadium. My lacrosse girls over here, giving their goalkeeper some love during a timeout. And over here, I got my crazy, kooky field hockey girls right before their turkey circuit. Type of girls that show up and they make, remember those in kindergarten? We made those like turkey paper hats and those Indian things. They showed up to the turkey circuit with those hats on. So make it fun. I coach because of these girls up here. I coach because these ladies make it fun to show up to work every single day. Have fun with them. Legacy. Again, I talk about how I am my strength coach's legacy, and the strength staff that coached me, I am their legacy. I fulfill what they've done for me. I'm going to talk to you about a lesson that I do with some of my athletes, some of my smaller teams. Now, your team, if you're a football coach out there, you can do it with your unit. If you're having trouble with a unit, make sure they're mature enough, though. It's a deep lesson. I take some of my smaller teams and I take them to a cemetery. Now, obviously, I've made my professional friendship with my compliance rep, so I understand what I can do with transportation. But I take them to a cemetery, and I tell them, go walk around 5 to 7 minutes, 15 minutes, however much time you have. Tell them to walk around and read what's on every single grave. When they're done, call them back in and ask them, what did you read? What was written on these graves? And you're going to hear answers like beloved mother, world's greatest dad, best son in the world. They might have military accolades. But the point is that at the end of the day, you are going to be remembered for what's on your grave. The difference that you're going to make, the legacy in which you're going to leave behind. Again, it's a deep lesson, but if your athletes are mature enough to understand that, maybe they're struggling with leadership, I challenge you to do this lesson with your athletes. It makes a difference. That team turned around, and they've had one of the most successful seasons that they ever did in school history. Come up with lessons, make an impact. Make sure they understand what a legacy is. I'm going to talk about some of these athletes up here. Whoops. Spoiler alert, it's the last slide. So this athlete up here, she was a transfer golf athlete. She came in here, she'd never been in a weight room before in her life. She could not hold a plank for 20 seconds. I didn't care about that. I didn't care about that at all. You know what I cared about? She had zero self-confidence. She had no confidence. She didn't have confidence in her game. She didn't have confidence in herself. And that's what bothered me. She came in the weight room and she was already defeated before she even knew what the warm-up was. She was defeated before I even could say, hi, how you doing today? How was your day? How'd practice go? A couple months ago, this athlete walked into the weight room. I was floored. Walked into the weight room, walked right into my office, and was so excited to tell me the opportunity that she had working with the PGA. She was so excited to tell me about the opportunity she had about coaching young kids and how she used the lessons that I instilled in her as an athlete to coach these young kids, to get them past the obstacles that were in front of them. And one thing that I love, she talked about how she put helicopter parents right in their place because she had the confidence. Because she had the confidence to stand up to stand up and speak with conviction. She was a compelling coach. This athlete over here sent me this picture. I'll just say thanks, I guess. I don't know if you can see in the back of the room, but she's jacked. This athlete's jacked. This is one of my field hockey athletes. I coached her as a freshman. And then with some sport changes, I got her back as a senior. Now this is the ideal athlete. You don't have to tell her nothing more than once. This girl came in every single day and she worked her butt off. She truly understood what performance in the what she did in the weight room positively affected her performance on the field. This is a picture of her last collegiate game. She told me a couple weeks ago that she couldn't wait to start training with me again because she had an opportunity to try out for the U.S. national team. And I'm telling you straight up, she's going to be on that Olympic stage one day. And I can't wait to watch her. These two gentlemen right here, I got G.C. Yeri. He's a former baseball athlete at Stony Brook University. He's a former intern of mine, and he took my GA-ship after I got the job at Rutgers University. GC now, at the ripe age of 25, he's the director of football at Stony Brook University. Couldn't be more proud. Couldn't be more proud. But a kid that committed himself, a kid that worked hard day in and day out to accomplish his goals. And the guy next to him, this is Chris Fenelon. Chris Fenelon was also a former football athlete of mine. He was a former intern of mine. After I finished my master's at Stony Brook, I was supposed to get a second master's. He was going for his first master's. We both got a GA ship together. Couldn't wait to work side by side with this guy in a weight room. Well, I kind of left him in the dust and I took a job at Rutgers. But he forgives me for it, I swear. But Chris right now, he is an assistant football strength coach at Iowa State. This is my legacy. How do you want to be remembered? What is your legacy? How are you impacting your athletes day in and day out? What kind of relationships are you building? What kind of professional friendships are you creating? Not only with your support staff, but with your athletes. Think about it. If you could take one thing from this presentation today, then I did my job.